All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's dive right into today's clinical explainer. Today, we're going to diagnose and completely deconstruct a severe biological disruption caused by a habit that honestly feels completely normal to most of us. But clinically speaking, it's deeply pathological. I'm talking about immediate morning smartphone usage. We're going to look at the exact physiological mechanisms that literally turn your digital device into a biological weapon against your own nervous system. So, here's the big question to kick things off. I really want you to think about this clinical hook. Why on earth does checking a phone, that seemingly harmless thing we do while still laying comfortably in bed, trigger a literal biological emergency alarm in the brain? Most of us just think, oh, I'm just checking my emails or I'm catching up on the news. But physiologically, we are acting as the catalyst for acute morning panic. And today, we're going to find out exactly why that happens. Here is our syllabus for today's physiological deep dive. We're covering 1. The morning panic. 2. The cortisol awakening response. 3. Blue light sabotage. 4. Hippocampus overload. And finally, 5. The clinical management protocol. Okay, kicking things off with part 1, the morning panic. Let's open our clinical case presentation by looking at the highly vulnerable state of your brain immediately upon waking. The sheer scale of this issue is just staggering. Roughly 90% of people engage in immediate morning digital consumption. 90%! This isn't just some bad habit. From a clinical perspective, this is a widespread behavioral pathology. It acts like absolute poison to our mental peace. We are unknowingly taking a brain that is in its absolute most fragile, malleable state of the entire day, and we're just shocking it right into severe anxiety. Moving into part 2, the cortisol awakening response. Let's step into the endocrinology lab for a second to examine the exact hormonal shifts happening in that crucial first hour of the day. First, we have to set our biological baseline. Have you guys heard of the cortisol awakening response, or CAR? Basically, it's the body's totally natural mechanism that sharply increases cortisol levels right after you wake up. Now, cortisol usually gets a really bad rap as just the stress hormone, right? But in the morning, it's absolutely essential. It surges naturally to transition us from sleep to alertness. It's basically preparing your body for the physical and mental challenges of the day ahead. And this number brilliantly illustrates the sheer magnitude of that surge. Within just 30 to 45 minutes of opening your eyes, your natural cortisol levels spike anywhere from 38 to 75%. Your body's already redlining its stress hormones just to get you out of bed and alert. So, here is the crucial point. What do you think happens when you introduce digital triggers right at the peak of this 75% cortisol surge? You grab your phone and immediately bombard your brain with negative news, urgent emails, work demands, or, toxic social media comparisons. Your nervous system takes this massive influx of stressful data, mixes it with the cortisol that's already peaking, and it just becomes completely confused. It literally forces your body into a fight or flight panic state. Your brain actually thinks you're under a physical threat, even though you're just laying in bed staring at a piece of glass. You've essentially manufactured a panic attack out of thin air. Which brings us to part 3, blue light sabotage. Because we have to address the severe endocrine disruption caused not just by the content you're scrolling through, but by the physical light emitted from the screen itself. Let's talk anatomy. The suprachiasmatic nucleus. Think of it as your brain's master biological clock. It sits right behind your eyes, and its entire job is to regulate your circadian rhythm, your whole sleep-wake cycle. To do this properly, it relies heavily on natural light cues from the sun. But when you shove a smartphone in your face, the literal second you wake up, you are blasting this super delicate biological clock with intense artificial digital blue light. You're sending it completely conflicting signals. And you can see exactly how melatonin, the hormone that fuels your recovery, responds here. Naturally, our nighttime levels are wonderfully high. But look at what happens when you introduce a late-night screen. Those levels just drastically drop. The real sabotage, though, happens when you use a screen immediately upon waking. This completely blocks any residual recovery processes, creating a severe biological mismatch. Your body entirely fails to recover from the previous day's fatigue, and that disrupted hormonal balance directly fuels that overwhelming heavy sense of morning anxiety. All right, on to part 4, hippocampus overload. Let's shift from endocrinology over to neurology and look at the actual brain structure responsible for processing this massive morning data dump. Just contrast these two waking scenarios. On the left, we have natural waking. The brain requires a really slow, gradual awakening. It's perfectly designed to slowly process the sensory inputs of your physical surroundings, like the soft light in the room or the sounds outside. But then over on the right, we see digital waking. Imagine someone walking up to you the second you open your eyes and just screaming right in your ear. That is exactly what looking at your phone does. It delivers thousands of simultaneous microstressors directly into your brain. So, what's the actual pathophysiology of this overstimulation? Well, your hippocampus, the part of the brain that helps regulate emotions and memory, gets completely overloaded by these thousands of sudden inputs. As a result, your nervous system actually loses the ability to distinguish between rest and alertness. The lines get totally blurred. And if you do this every single morning, this daily biological confusion paves the way for chronic stress and eventually full-blown panic disorders. Finally, Part 5, our clinical management protocol. Having established the pathogenesis of this morning panic, we can't just leave you with a diagnosis, right? We have to move to the prescription. This is your recovery roadmap to restore biological homeostasis. I am prescribing you this exact 4-step clinical protocol to systematically break you out of the digital prison. Step 1, you absolutely must enforce a strict 1-hour no-phone zone immediately upon waking. No exceptions. Step 2, get 10 to 15 minutes of actual natural sunlight. Step 3, practice 5 to 10 minutes of structured respiration or deep breathing. And step 4, turn off all your digital gadgets 1 full hour before sleep so you can protect that vital melatonin production. Let's break down the mechanisms of action for why this protocol works so incredibly well. On the left, getting natural sunlight pharmacologically boosts your serotonin, that's your happy hormone, and actively resets that master biological clock we talked about earlier. On the right, structured respiration. Guys, this is the ultimate hack. Deep breathing physically downregulates active cortisol. It acts like a manual override, shifting your nervous system rapidly from a state of panic straight into a state of peace. This brings us to our final prognosis. I really want you to remember this quote. Morning anxiety is a dashboard signal. Your routine is going against nature. That completely reframes the entire issue, doesn't it? Morning anxiety is not some mental weakness. It's not a character flaw. It is literally a critical dashboard warning light flashing in your mind, telling you there's a severe mismatch with your natural biology. Do not let the phone become the master of your world. So I'm going to conclude this explainer by challenging all of you. You're the students here. It's time to apply this science to your own lives. Look at the protocol we just covered. What is the one intervention you will implement tomorrow morning to reclaim your biological peace? Is it going to be the 1-hour no-phone zone, the 10 minutes of sunlight? Make a clinical intervention for yourself tomorrow. Stand up to the digital prison and take your biology back. All right, class dismissed.